Welcome back, everybody. Are you up for some psychology revision today? Want to talk about Zimbardo? Then come revise with me. Today we're going to be talking about role conformity and Zimbardo's prison study, and I'm going to show you some exam style questions. You can have a go, and then I'm going to talk through how I would do them. So, this is Galbraith Does Psych. Let's crack on. So we are at the practice and or retrieval phase of our revision at the moment. You might like to go and do some rehearsal if this is feeling really rusty and you can't even remember anything about the study. But if you're ready to practice, let's do it. Okay, so here are some exam style questions taken from or adapted from my increasingly difficult questions pack for paper 1 that's on my website if you've seen it. You might like to just have a go, even if it's just a kind of 5-minute verbal or mental kind of thing, or with a partner. If you've got the time, or you can find the time, do actually sit down, give yourself, the right kind of time to do this properly, and then come back and I'll talk through, and you can self-assess. Okay, so you might like to pause the video at this point. Okay, so you've come back after having a go, hopefully, or you're still with me and you've had a bit of a think. Right, let's go. So, the Stanford Prison Experiment is a study of obedience, true or false? A fairly unlikely exam question, to be honest, but as part of a slightly bigger multiple choice question, it has sort of been asked before, so let's go. This is false. It is not a study of obedience. We could discuss how some obedience processes might have been involved if, Zimbardo was an authority figure for the guards, for example, but it is not actually a study of obedience. It's a study of role conformity, so do not say obedience. Okay, role conformity for 2 marks. So this is where we change our behaviour to fit the expected behaviour of a role that we've been assigned, a social role such as a prisoner or a guard, but it could be anything, teacher, student, whatever. Describe the procedure of Zimbardo's study. Procedure obviously means method or how it was done. So we're going to say things like Zimbardo recruited male volunteers from newspaper adverts, he psychologically screened them, and then they were randomly assigned the role of either prisoner or guard. The prisoners were unexpectedly arrested at home, taken to a mock prison in the basement of Stanford University. They were given ID numbers and uniforms. The guards were given uniforms that were kind of military style. They had reflective glasses and batons or sticks, whatever you want to call them. And Zimbardo observed role conformity. So he was looking for the behaviour of the prisoners, the behaviour of the guards, to see whether they conformed to their role. And some of that was done using microphones and video cameras. Okay, so on to the findings. And obviously then if we put these 2 questions together, this kind of becomes our 6-mark knowledge outline for later. So the findings, things you can say. Did they conform to their role? So yes, so Zimbardo found that prisoners conformed to their role. For example, they became, although they were initially resistant, they quickly became passive, withdrawn, and talked about getting parole, talked about prison life, showing that they did conform to their role. The guards also largely conformed to their role, although some didn't fully, but largely they conformed to their role. And that involved things like being abusive to the prisoners, getting them to perform menial tasks, cleaning the toilet with their bare hands, doing, strenuous exercises, getting them up in the middle of the night to do count, that sort of thing. They became tyrannical, sadistic, you might say, some of them, yeah? So the findings are about kind of did they conform to the role. You could also talk about how, some of the prisoners had breakdowns, how some of them had to be released, how the study ended on day 6 out of the expected 14, okay? All right. Identify, so there's a mark for just stating, and explain an ethical issue. There are loads you could talk about, aren't there? So something like right to withdraw, yeah? So one issue is right to withdraw. There's a mark already. 2 marks for explaining now. Something like Zimbardo arguably didn't let participants leave when they wanted to because he put pressure on them to stay and become an informant when they asked to leave the study. Okay, discuss one strength of the SPE. So one strength is the controlled conditions of Zimbardo's study. This arguably gives the study more internal validity. Yeah. However, this is a discussed question. Yeah, so a bit more. However, the high levels of control and the fact that participants knew it was a study arguably led to some kind of artificial behaviour where maybe participants were just playing up to make it dramatic to help Zimbardo get what he wanted from the study. On balance, this undermines the internal validity of the study. Okay, now we want two limitations. We could use the ethical one, so let's use that. I'm not going to repeat all of that. We could talk about how he was involved in the study. Okay, so another limitation of the Stanford study is that Zimbardo took on two roles. He was the prison superintendent as well as the lead researcher. His role in the prison itself may have led to experimenter bias or observer bias, which might involve him putting extra pressure on the participants to behave in certain ways, or might involve him interpreting events in a more dramatic way than he would have done if he'd remained more impartial. This arguably undermines the internal validity of the study. Okay. Discuss the findings of research into role conformity. So it's a mini essay, isn't it? But it is just focused on the findings, yeah? And this is probably going to be a 3+5, so 3 knowledge, 5 evaluation marks. The findings, remember, we talked about it earlier, things like, they both groups conformed to their role. It was ended on day 6, that sort of thing, okay? So start by outlining that. And then for your 5 evaluation marks or 5 discussion marks, you probably want to go for 2 paragraphs. It could be 1 strength, 1 limitation. It could be, a couple of points that you kind of discuss both sides of, yeah? And I've already talked through 2 or 3 points, so I'm not going to rehash all of that. When we get to the 16 marker, again, it's a straightforward enough one. 6 marks for outlining. We've been through the procedure and the findings. And when it comes to the evaluation, you've got 10 marks, so you're looking for probably 3 points that you're kind of doing point, explain, conclude, counterpoint, conclude, that sort of thing. Or 4 maybe if you're more kind of just peel structure, yeah, so just 1 strength of or 1 limitation of, yeah. So other things you could talk about, another strength of this study is the real-world application. You might have looked at the Abu Ghraib prison, which was, the photos you might have seen. They're not particularly nice photos. Have come out of this. It's a prisoner of war camp in the early 2000s. We're talking about. The point here is that this study has been used to explain the abuse that those guards actually inflicted on those prisoners of war, and therefore this study helps us to understand real-world behaviour. Yeah. So yeah, we could talk about that. We could talk about the internal validity, and I've already talked a bit about the bias that Zimbardo might have had. We could do a discussion paragraph on the ethics. Okay, you might also use, depending on which source you study from, you might have come across this study. There's one done by Banu Azizi and Movahedi, where they showed people the kind of description of the Stanford prison experiment and asked them what do they think is going to happen, what do they think that the team are looking for. And they were able to guess the aims of the study and guess what the researchers are looking for. Yeah, so you might use that in a discussion about the internal validity, because if people that had never really heard of the study before were able to guess what it was all about, then that means that the participants probably could have done, and therefore probably would have showed demand characteristics. Yeah. Okay, right. Hopefully that gives you some ideas about what you're going to say. All right, so we're at that point where we've had a go. You're going to have an initial feeling about your performance. Where are the gaps? What went well? Or you might have actually been able to kind of level yourself or give yourself a certain mark. But however, deep you've done that, you've looked at your performance. You're then reflecting. Yeah. So where were your areas of strength? Where were your areas of weakness, what gaps are there, how hard, even if you got it right, how hard was it? So, do you actually still need to put some time into that? Are there styles of questions that you struggled with? That sort of thing, okay? And then an action. What are you going to do as a result of this revision, yeah? Because this isn't it. We're not done, yeah? This is more of a cycle. Yeah, you keep going with it, and it feeds back into itself. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Thanks if you're still with me, and again, a massive thank you to everyone that has subscribed. Please do get involved, ask me a question, comment on how you found that, perhaps suggest something you'd like to see in the future. Yeah, whether that's a different style of video or a particular topic you want me to cover, please let me know. All right. Thanks very much, everybody. Hopefully see you in another video. Bish bash bosh.